You're listening to Landlord Tenant World. Well, it's a landlord tenant world out there, and welcome to it. I'm Doug Schimel with Hapco Philadelphia, and I'm your host for the podcast that looks at the single best industry in the universe, and that's being a rental and investment property owner. Nearly half of Philadelphians are renters, which makes it the single largest city of landlords and tenants in the country, and it makes Hapco Philadelphia one of the largest landlord advocacy groups in the nation. Well, coming up in this edition of Landlord Tenant World, she is a pickup driving, horseback riding attorney who sort of became an accidental landlord. We're going to meet Hapco Philadelphia's newest board member, Kerry Nelson. But up first, they are a husband and wife team that, you know, like many families, they juggle a family and they juggle kids. And at one time they juggled regular jobs. And that goes along with running their own mom and pop rental and real estate investment empire. So how do they do it? Well, a big landlord tenant world welcome to good friends of mine, Anthony and Leticia Quipinza. Guys, how are you today? If these guys look a little familiar, it's because they have been part of the Hapco Philadelphia media pool that helps tell our rental and investment property owner stories to the world and to the politicians and so forth. And it's sort of a nice turnaround, Anthony and Leticia, because now we get to tell your stories and learn all of your rental and real estate secrets. So I think it's only fair.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Hey, absolutely. Great to see you guys. This is the first time I think I've seen you guys actually together because Anthony, we're usually shooting separately with you and with Leticia. So I guess you sent some great pictures and we're going to be adding those in. When and how did you guys first meet? I mean, I was kind of kidding when I sent the notes around. It wasn't through some sort of like weird rental dating app, was it?
Yeah, it was Plenty of Fish Landlords. No, we met at Temple. We're both Temple Owls, and we met there going to school as students. You know, I realized really quickly that she was driven, smart, as well as beautiful, and as someone I wanted to be with for a long time.
Yeah. Leticia, what'd you think about him when you first saw him?
You know what? He took a while to warm up on me. We'll just say that. No, we were really good friends for a while. We both are business school graduates, but we also actually worked together at the gym on campus. So we got to be really good friends. And then eventually we started dating.
That's pretty cool. Now, had you ever, even in the dating phases, was there ever any sort of inkling of rental investment, anything? I mean, did either one of your families ever do that? Because I know our one of our other new board members, Debbie Jadeja, her dad was a longtime Hapco member and a rental investment property owner, and she kind of got into the family business. But was there any of that on either side?
You know, it's funny. I always knew I wanted to be a landlord. My dad, I grew up in Queens, New York. I was born in New York City. And when we moved to the suburbs, he kept that house. So I remember going with him, and I always knew I wanted to be a landlord. I don't think Leticia knew, even though her father had plenty of properties in Boston.
Yeah.
And he would take her with her as well. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was a glamorous thing that she saw herself doing, but it's funny how we ended up together, and now we're doing this together, and we both have that background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You guys started out in other industries, right? I mean, Leticia, you had a different career. I think you said in corporate PR and another thing. And Anthony, you were in what, banking and some?
Yes,
where did you guys start out?
Yeah, well, I graduated Temple and I went right into corporate fashion retail. I was in the buying industry for a while, and then I went to Comcast and started in their talent acquisition department in HR. So I left there as a project manager. And Anthony has plenty of financial and banking experience as well.
Yes.
Yeah, Anthony, where did you start out? I mean, what did you set out wanting to do when you got out of school, though? I mean, obviously it wasn't rental stuff.
I'll tell you a funny story, Doug. So I graduated and I jumped into the mortgage industry, but this was like 2006.
Yeah.
Subprime market was about to explode. But she'll tell you, and I told her this probably 20 years ago. I said, one day I'm going to be doing something with mortgages or houses, and you'll be in corporate America as a director or someone like that, and we'll be like our own power couple. So even though I didn't
Wow.
set out to do that, it kind of became that. I was in banking for years, and we were managing these properties, me being a bank manager, her working for Comcast, and then all of a sudden having children. So we had to quickly set up systems and processes in place because we really quickly knew it wasn't gonna be possible with what we had on our plates.
Yeah, because you're both going off to offices, and
Yep,
childcare is a massive cost these
you got
days.
it.
I mean, it's probably doubled since my kids were young, and they're 31 and 26 now.
Sure.
Um, what was I sort of mentioned this? What was kind of the tipping point for you guys that made? And I know, Anthony, you kind of dipped your toe in different waters in the realty business.
Yeah.
What was it that kind of pushed you in that direction? Because I don't know if the banking and the finance side was, if it was boring or too intense or too competitive. I mean, what happened?
I'll tell you it was God. I really, it wasn't a plan. It wasn't boring. I was doing well. I was celebrated. I was talked about reaching the next level. I think I ended my career as a vice president or assistant vice president. I made
Wow.
good money. So it wasn't like I was failing or I didn't want to do it anymore or it was boring. I got my license and when my second daughter was born, so about 6 years ago, and I just got it for myself. But because of being a landlord and people knew me for what they knew me for, I had people all of a sudden reaching out saying, "Hey, Anthony, I know you're not a regular realist. I know you don't help other people, but could you just help me this one time? Because these agents out here stink. They don't have experience, and you have it." And
Yeah.
it's crazy. I didn't plan on it at all. I probably did like a deal a quarter, and then all of a sudden I kept telling people, don't tell anyone else. And then before I knew it, I was doing one a month. And then I was making more money than I was making in corporate America. So I realized I might as well leave banking and do this full time. I love it.
Yeah.
It's flexible. It's enjoyable. And yeah, that's what happened. It wasn't a goal. It was by accident.
Letitia, did you think he was nuts?
No, actually, he's a very driven man. We both have a lot in common and we're very different at the same time. But the business background that we both have in different ways really helped me fall in love with him in the early stages. And so just him, he's so well-rounded with the banking, financial, just personal investment stocks and everything that he has, then adding on a landlord. So it just seemed natural when he wanted to take his real estate career to agent career to a full-time level.
So how did the rental property ownership creep in there? I mean, Anthony, as you were doing your real estate stuff, were you just seeing a lot of rental properties up for sale, or were people looking for people to manage them? How did the rental thing suddenly go off in your head and say, we need to get into this?
Yes, it was actually more like what you said, Doug. It was something I always had on my mind. So I bought my first property at 25, and that wasn't like, okay, here's the end all be all. To me, it was really just the start. So I was house hacking. I had a roommate who paid almost the entire mortgage.
Yeah.
I saved up money. 2 years later, I bought a triplex in West Philly. We still have that property to this day. We've done stories at the property. You guys have taken pictures of us there.
Yep.
So it was a goal. And the next thing I know, 2 years later, we're getting married. I bought another property on Temple's campus. And the funny thing is, as many properties as we bought and sold, those 3 properties are our foundation. And it's always been our foundation. So I think it was actually the opposite. We had that foundation of rental properties in place. And that's actually what allowed us to make some of the moves we made. So you asked the question, like, Letitia, did you think Anthony was crazy? The foundation we already had
Yeah.
with me taking a step out and jumping out there to
Yeah.
be an agent, it wasn't like are we gonna pay the bills? We already knew we were taken care of, and that's because of the foundation we built with properties, with landlording, and honestly, with the help of Hapco. We've learned a lot through Hapco events. We just did a Don Beck, it was a quick information session in
Education
Manio.
session by Hapco Philadelphia. Yep.
I had deja vu from the course I took from him 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That Saturday course where, you have to devote your whole Saturday.
Yep.
But I looked at that hour and a half information session and I realized a lot of this is the foundation and principles that we've built our business on. We made some mistakes, but we knew, hey, we're a part of Hapco. Why not use the resources that we have here and take advantage of it? So it really was the opposite. I had that plan in place, and that plan is what allowed us to do so many other great things and live where we are now, just being able to live financially free because of that.
Letitia, what was the learning curve for you? Because some of this might have been a little alien to you. And it sounds like both of you were kind of learning on the fly, it seems.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So my dad, like he said, was a landlord, and I'm from Massachusetts originally. And so my dad had properties in Boston. So I would go with him sometimes. But again, like Anthony said, I wasn't really interested in it. So our kids now are forced to come with us to different showings at a really early age. And we are intentional about talking to them about it too. My dad, he wasn't really like helping nurture that business in me at the time. He would nurture like you got to buy your own home, but not necessarily being a landlord.
Yeah.
And so, but now, I'm grateful that I had that experience, and especially to meet my future husband at the time that would come from a similar background like that.
What were some of the problems and pitfalls that you ran into early on? And I'm guessing maybe it was before you found out and joined Hapco Philadelphia.
Yeah.
What were some of the things you ran into you went, oh, damn it?
Yeah, what was new to me was what we had to establish, especially just managing. First, it was just us. When we got married is when I got really like thrown into the landlord business, and he was new to it at the same time. So me just having like a project management background, I could see like, oh, we need to set up a process here, and then he could add like, we need to tweak this process here and what have you. So, we just kind of built that together. But one of the biggest things is bad tenants, right? You're going to make some mistakes along the way. And especially early on as new landlords, sometimes you may be thinking just fill the place as best as you can, but really sometimes it may be worth skipping a month, not too many months, but a month to select the right candidate.
Find the right mix. Exactly. I think there are a lot of rental property owners out there who feel as though they've got to have things dovetailed and seamless. That one lease expires, they've given intent to leave, and you've got to have somebody in there. And that can sometimes mean you overlook something, or the background check isn't as thorough. Or some little something in the closet doesn't come out in time.
Agreed. I could say that was the biggest pitfall that we saw. And that was my first, when I bought that triplex, I was like, let me get 3 people in here, boom. And we quickly learned like that wasn't going to be possible, especially when we had kids, our plates were full. You can't make those type of mistakes. Things are going to happen even when you pick the best tenant, but picking the right tenant, and again, Don Beck, the landlord class, Hapco, those resources really helped us because we both worked 40-hour jobs. Now I'm starting my career as an agent. We had properties, kids. We had to really figure it out quickly that we couldn't make the mistakes of selecting bad tenants.
What was the weirdest thing that you guys ran across, as you were starting to expand that rental empire? A lot of times it's the landlord-tenant relationship. We always talk about how crucial that is. And Hapco always, pushes out there, it's education, communication, mediation. What was the weirdest thing that you guys ran into?
I have a funny story. I don't know if this exactly answers your question, but I had to show, we've finally realized how we had to do showings for potential tenants, right? So early on, we would do one-off showings when, we'd post on Craigslist. We'd get a couple people that were interested in seeing it. We would do one-off showings here and there. And then we realized we don't have the time to do one-off for this person, one-off for this person another day. So we started doing more like open house type showings, but we would schedule people within the open house.
Yeah.
So one time I had an open house and we're still working with the key situation of our triplex. I forgot the keys to the apartment. And this was the time at our triplex, we do a really great job maintaining that property. It was renovated very well. So we get a lot of interest. It's a good street. We get a lot of interest all the time when we list it. So I had a line out the door of potential tenants that wanted to see it.
That's like a fantasy. Oh.
Yeah. Probably a kid on her hip too.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have the keys. We just had switched the keys because the new tenant was moving, what have you. So
a girl there, Latif.
It was crazy. Thankfully, it was a triplex, so we could kind of work with, could see a little bit of it, but not the full effect of the apartment. I had to work through like, this is how it looks. This is the process. I'm going to schedule a follow-up session for you, but we still got a tenant that day. So.
Yeah. Anthony, you mentioned you might have had a kid or two on your hips at the time. What's been the key to kind of juggling, running the real estate thing, doing your realty, and running the rental empire with the kids?
Yeah, systems, processes, and then like my wife said, we really don't hide it from them. It's a lesson, it's a life lesson, it's part of the plan. And that's what it's part of life. Like on social media, people see my kids and people might think, oh yeah, like Anthony's planting that in there. It's really cute. It's not planted. That's what we have to do. So we got 3 kids. We're not from in the area necessarily. So we have some friends in church family, but for the most part, it's us. So our kids are part of our process. They are thrown in. They are probably going to be future landlords and property owners.
I was just going to ask you that if this is like the grooming process here.
Not meant to be, but I think subconsciously and just by need, by necessity, they're with us and they seem to enjoy it. They have fun with it. We make it a fun game. Kids nowadays, they're, social media, TikTok, Instagram, they love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we make it all part of the game for them.
Yeah. And I guess they figure when somebody says, well, do you live in a house or apartment? Oh, we have 20 houses and apartments.
Yeah, right.
What?
Yeah.
So Anthony, I know we've talked about this before, when we've done some of the Hapco videos. You're kind of an interesting hybrid in that you're both a real estate agent and you are a rental property owner.
Yeah.
How does that kind of help? Because I don't know if you're getting folks coming to you saying, hey, I'm looking for rental properties. And I don't know if a lot of real estate agents are up to speed on that and can talk and sell intelligently on that.
I think it's a huge advantage for my clients. As a buyer's agent, they're not paying me commission already. So they're getting guidance as far as the right property, but it's not just the right property. It's having the experience, having resources, Hapco, and different life experiences. So they're buying a property that's going to fit financially, that's going to be profitable.
Yep.
And then I'm giving them a foundation for landlording, picking the right tenants, what to do with this person, that person, making sure they're getting the right experience as far as buying it. Are you getting the deposit? Are you getting the copy of the leases? Are you getting payment history to show what type of tenant you're getting? So I think it's a humongous advantage, and a lot of my clients come to me for that. And I think it avoids a lot of what we see in our business, like the landlords that don't make it or that want to leave. It's probably through a bad experience. Maybe they bought the wrong property. Maybe they just jumped right in without the resources, without the parachute. So it's humongous of setting that foundation for them, so they're getting a home right away that's going to be profitable for them.
So here's where we get in the plug for the end of our segment here, Letitia, about how important an organization like a Hapco Philadelphia is to avoiding some of those, young gun, go it alone rental owner mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been very beneficial. I mean, we've been Hapco members for years now, probably almost a decade at this point. And at minimum, I tell people when I'm trying to persuade whether it's his clients that he helps become landlords or other people, friends and family, I'm like, Hapco, Hapco, Hapco. This is a great group. At minimum, just connecting with other landlords in our Google group to share different stories, ask questions, share, hey, did you see this is going on new in the city or what have you? Then there's events that you have throughout the year where we can meet in person. And then there's the Ask Attorney session where, if we have something going on, trying to avoid eviction or what other
Exactly.
legal matters that we may have going on, there's so much benefits to it. And the cost, is far outweighs. I mean, the benefits far outweigh the costs.
Well,
Yeah.
you heard it right here from two of Hapco Philadelphia's. It's one of our many dynamic landlord duos.
Yes.
Hapco Philadelphia and landlord and rental owner advocacy is crucial. Letitia and Anthony Crepinza, thank you. I can't thank you enough for
Doug.
being on Hapco Philadelphia's Landlord Tenant World, and keep up the good work and keep us posted.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us on.
Hey, our next guest on Landlord Tenant World says she got into the rental property business in sort of I guess you would say maybe an unorthodox way. She grew up driving a pickup truck on a farm in upstate New York. She rides horses. When she wasn't riding horses, she was riding motorcycles and maybe mechanical bulls later in life. And when she's got a little spare time, she practices a little law on the side. And now she is one of the newest board of directors for Hapco Philadelphia, a huge landlord tenant world. Welcome to Carrie Nelson. How you doing, Carrie?
Hi, Doug. Thanks so much. It's crazy to be here with Doug Schimel.
It'll extend your life, if nothing else, a greater life expectancy. Hey, congratulations first off on joining the Hapco Philadelphia Board of Directors. You've been sort of in a million different businesses, this just being sort of like the tip of the iceberg. You got to tell me a little bit about this upbringing, because you were kind of like hunting, fishing, farming all before birth. No, all before age like 11,
before birth.
12.
Well, I didn't actually hunt, but all the rest of it, yes. And I look back now on it and I think, well, that was an extraordinary way to grow up. But of course, at the time it seemed just perfectly natural to have horses and chickens and ducks and go out, riding every day bareback. And my parents just had a rule. There's a 6 o'clock whistle that blows from the firehouse.
Yes.
When that goes off, you have to come home. Otherwise, they were like, oh, sure, go for hours on your horse. We won't know where you are if you're alive, but that's cool.
Exactly. Oh, no, that was pretty standard. I grew up in Connecticut, and when the horn blew and it echoed out of the garage from the car, that was the signal that it was dinner time. Now, you were growing up on basically a farm in upstate New York, so all rural. There, I don't know how much sort of landlording and rental, and investment property type stuff there was going on up there. But before you even got into that, where did law and practicing law come in? Was that something that your folks said, okay, riding bareback horse, farming, shooting, that's all good, you got to do something?
Well, one small correction there. I spent summers in upstate New York. I spent the rest of the year, I actually grew up in Long Island, but in a place where there were not a lot of people around, and it was a half an hour to the nearest town. So, not incredibly different in what you do as a kid every day.
Yes.
But the way I ended up becoming a lawyer was I went to school to be a geologist, and I went and got 2 degrees.
Yeah.
And I loved it, but the bottom dropped out of that market at the time I got my degree. So here I was waiting to pay back all my student loans, and there just weren't any jobs in that field. So I decided to go back to school for something. And as you say, your parents say you're set up already for something like that field of career. Yeah. And that was because my mother was sure I was great at arguing.
Oh,
so we had practiced that often, she and she just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And when my husband chimed in and seconded her opinion, I thought, oh, I'm in trouble here. This is the avenue.
Yeah. So, you get out into the legal world. I guess there was no such thing as geology law. So, and you have a really interesting story about how your Irish roots, Nelson, sort of a classic Irish name, sort of became the nexus for getting into the rental property business.
It is. It was really just fate, I think. So when I was finishing up law school, my husband really wanted to buy a house. We, of course, had no money. So he was taking me past all sorts of places that I wouldn't live in. We finally purchased a house, or wanted to purchase a house, that was within our budget, but you could see the daylight through the walls. I mean, it needed everything in the house. So we bought the house and we got started rolling on it, and it needed a new roof. And we had a guy who our realtor, who was Irish from Galway, got us through the Irish network. Yay, great. A couple years later, we said the last thing that we're going to do to the house is tiling, and neither one of us wanted to do tiling. So we called the same roofer back. Roofer, tiler, plumber, whatever. And so we were having this conversation. He said, it'll be great because we won't be on the floors. You can have the key to the house. We're actually going to Ireland to go see some relatives. And he started asking me questions about, where in Ireland? And I said, in the north. And he said, where in the north? And I said, in Tyrone. And he said, okay, we're in County Tyrone. And I said, well, Pomeroy and Carrickmore. And he said, that's where I'm from.
No.
Who are your cousins? And it turns out that he had grown up being best friends with my cousin Donnie.
Oh, good grief. Wow.
Best friends. And then we ran into each other in the United States.
Oh, that's unreal. So what was your, very quickly, what was sort of your rental empire? Was it fix and flips, or did you do actual, landlording with property management? How did it all manifest?
Yeah, so he wanted to do fix and flips, and I had always wanted to do fix and flips, but neither one of us had the complete package of skills. So we joined forces and we bought, abandoned homes in Philadelphia, row homes, and brought them back to life and installed tenants in them with the thought that we think this neighborhood's coming up. So we would hold on to them for 2 to 3 years. And then if the neighborhood was moving forward, which they all did, and we would sell that. And meanwhile, we'd start another house, and it worked really, really nicely. So that was my introduction. And of course, you learn a lot of things by trial and error, because at that point I was not a Hapco member. And so, there were some lessons learned during those years, but now that I've done it, I've figured recently I've done close to 100 tenants through the years.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Between that and being a Hapco member, where they kind of have resources so that you can learn and be guided, you end up doing a pretty professional job.
Oh, that's fantastic, because as I was saying to our first guests, Anthony and Letitia, so many young guns get out there. They think maybe they inherit property. A relative died. That happened with myself. And I just started landlording. This was up in the Lehigh Valley. And then the next thing you know, when I started doing work with Hapco Philadelphia 5 years ago, I realized I was an illegal landlord and didn't know any better, and could have made all sorts of mistakes. And it was just, divine providence that Hapco Philadelphia became a client, and I learned by osmosis all the things I should have been doing years earlier.
Yes, they're a great resource for that. And one of the things that I think people don't realize is, especially if you're in the city of Philadelphia, it's just legal landmines. There are things that you would never think that you have to do as a landlord. They're not logical in any way, sense, or form. And there's no place you can go in the city to figure out what they are.
Kerry, very quickly before we go, were you better at mechanical bull riding or motorcycle riding?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would have to say motorcycle riding, because I'm still here.
Okay. Well, one of Hapco Philadelphia's newest board members, Kerry Nelson, we are so glad to have you on the board of directors. Thank you so much for being on Landlord Tenant World. We're going to be, we've got pictures of you and your various incarnations, and you also have a farmer's market that you've also got was that out in Colorado too? That's one of the businesses you're in? That's pretty cool.
Yes,
so
correct.
We'll throw a picture up there. Carrie, thank you so much. Glad to have you aboard. Well, that's all the time we have for this edition. Big thanks to our guests, Hapco Philadelphia husband and wife landlords, Anthony and Letitia Crepinza, and Hapco Philadelphia board member, Carrie Nelson. If you're a rental or investment property owner, or you manage, or you're a vendor, and you're not a member of Hapco Philadelphia, check us out at hapcophiladelphia.com, or you can go to Hapco Philadelphia on Facebook. You can check out our upcoming education events and our members-only Ask the Attorney events. You can save hundreds of dollars on rental and real estate advice. And if you've got any questions, we want them on future editions of the Landlord Tenant World podcast. So post them on our Facebook page or email them to me at doug@focusmediaservices.com. So for everybody at Hapco Philadelphia, I'm Doug Scheinel, reminding you that it is a landlord tenant world out there. See you next time, guys. Thanks for listening to Landlord Tenant World. To learn more, visit Hapco Philadelphia at hapcophiladelphia.com. And we'll see you next time.